Hey guys, welcome back to video 4 of the Gallery Models 1/200 scale Battleship Yamato build. In this video I put the hull together, fill some gaps, get the propeller shaft supports together, the rudders, aircraft boat hangar deck, and we get it painted. So let's get into it. As I started putting the hull together. Now, if you remember from the first video when we unboxed it, this was all in one piece, in one box, but it wasn't glued together or anything. But it had these metal brackets and plastic braces holding the two halves together. So I've gone ahead and I've glued those two halves together. But before I did that, I made sure that these screws on these metal brackets were tight enough. And in the instructions, it's funny, they always say, make sure they're not too loose and not too tight. If you start to get them too tight, you'll see the plastic that they screw into start to crack. Ask me how I know that. Anyway, I went ahead and I started in the stern, and I made sure it was nice and lined up. Let's see if I can get the camera down here so you can see. All right, so a little bit of a step. I need the sand, but all in all, not too bad. Down here, you can see a little bit of a gap where the rudder is going to attach. We'll take care of that in a little while. I've got a couple other very minor gaps on the bottom of the hull. And we'll take a look at those here in just a minute too. Coming over to the bow. Again, let's see if I can get this to focus. Yeah, a little bit of a step right here where it joins in the front. But just a little bit of sanding, and that should go away no problem. All right, so I'm going to reposition the camera, and then we're going to take a look at the bottom of the ship. Be right back. All right, now we've got it upside down, and I just wanted to show you what I was talking about. These like very small gaps. One right here along the stern section, and then it's a pretty decent fit all the way along here. And then up toward by the bow, we've got a little bit of a gap right here. So I'm just gonna fill that real quick. It shouldn't take long, just a little bit of filler. I've also gone ahead and added some of these pipes, these other little details along the side of the hull. And on either side, there's this little anchor too. I figured I'd go ahead and put that on there before we got to priming and painting, because I didn't wanna have to do all those little bits separately. Something else that I forgot to mention when we had it upright was this white cardstock that I had put down in here. And this is just simply to help reinforce the bottom part of the hull. Next, I'm going to start filling those small gaps, and I'm going to go ahead and drill out these portholes too. And the reason for that is I'm going to put LED lights on the ship. I think that's going to look really cool if we have those drilled out so the light can shine through. Anyway, we're going to start filling those gaps here in just a minute. Be right back. All right, guys, I'm going to take care of this gap that I have along the seam line that runs around right where I joined the two halves of the hull together. This is the worst part of it. It starts right about here, and it goes to about where I have this paper towel down here. There's another one up toward the bow, but it's not as bad. So I was going to show you how I take care of that on this one right here. Now you can either use Tester's putty with isopropyl alcohol or Tamiya putty with lacquer thinner. And since my Tester's putty looks a little dried up right now, I'm going to use the Tamiya putty on this. So it's really simple. Just go ahead and apply the putty right along that gap. It's all right if it doesn't fill in every little spot. We're gonna spread it out here in just a second. All right, that should be good enough. I'm just going to take my finger and just kind of push it into that gap. Just spread it right along there. And as you can see, I already got a bit too much. That's all right. We'll get it cleaned up here. Cool, that's good. So now that it's got the gap is covered up, what I'm gonna do next is take this lacquer thinner on the paper towel. Just gonna fold it up. Now I'm just gonna run this wet paper towel with the lacquer thinner right along the seam. You see how it's gonna clean up that excess putty. I'm just gonna leave it down in the seam. And it's going to smooth it out real nice, so I shouldn't have to do much sanding at all by doing this technique. Which is really helpful if you've got a spot where you've got a lot of detail that you would have to rescribe. If you don't have to do that, then that would be best, I think. And the tester's putty, you can do the same technique, like I said, with the isopropyl alcohol. It comes off just like that, or just like this, I should say. There we go. We've wiped off the excess and we've filled the gap, and I don't have to sand. So I'm gonna get on with the other seam line at the other end, and we'll move on from there. All right, real quick guys, before we get started on the rudders and propellers, I wanted to show you how I cleaned up the bow section here. I went ahead and filled in with some Mr. Surfacer 1500 black and then sanded it smooth with 600, 1000, and 1500 grit sandpaper. And it feels like I got it completely smooth there on the front, and over here on the stern, same thing. Filled it with the Mr. Surfacer 1500 black and sanded it smooth. So I think I've got that squared away. Won't know for sure if it's perfect until I get some primer on it. But right now, I'm gonna go ahead and start working on assembling the rudders and the propellers. On the main propeller in the back comes in two halves with this piece in the center that's going to go into this hole and attach here. So if you do this right, it should be able to go right in, glue down here at the base, but then still be able to move. Same thing with the smaller rudder. This just sits inside and it goes into that hole and attaches here, and it can also still move. The propellers and the shafts took a little bit of work. This one was actually broken on the sprue, and I've gone ahead and repaired it, and I think it looks pretty good. I don't know, honestly, if I had to point it out, if anyone would actually be able to tell. But I'm going ahead and I'm going to glue these using this metal rod as a guide to make sure everything is lined up. And I've gone ahead and I've dry fitted a lot of this and did a lot of sanding to make sure that these sit down into place the way they should. Some of these took a little bit more work than others. But there it goes. So what we'll do is we'll just go ahead and get everything in position. And these ones right here, these I had to go in and trim up the inside of this hole here so that it would sit properly. So So if you're doing this, just make sure you do a lot of dry fitting before you start gluing anything. There we go. We're just gonna get everything into position. And once you're happy with it and you've double checked all of the connection points and everything is lined up and sitting like it should, then we can go ahead and glue. We'll glue these down, and then once that's done and let it dry, I'll go ahead and remove the propeller and the shaft and leave it like this, all the way across, and we'll have it that way for painting. That way I can paint these up separate. These get to be like a brass or gold color. These are gonna stay natural metal, and then we can get everything else painted up. All right, so that's what we're gonna do right now. We'll get this back on. And I'll grab my extra thin cement. Again, just double, triple checking, making sure everything is lining up as it should before committing. Yeah, so the next thing we're gonna do is work on the boat and aircraft hangar deck. One other thing I wanted to show you. I went ahead and drilled out the, whoops, that's, all right, so I went ahead and drilled out the portholes. There aren't too many portholes on the ship. They're just right around this upper deck level. And all these other dots, these used to be portholes. In 1941, these were all opened up. And then by 1945, after a refit, most of these portholes were covered up by steel plates. The only question I have, and it's these larger portholes, and on the model, they're square. This larger one right here, in reference photos of the actual ship and also in the 3D models that are in anatomy of the ship, this is a large rectangular window here. But in the 3D models and anatomy of the ship, these are round. And in actual photographs, it's very, very difficult to tell if these are square or if they're round. Obviously they're square here on the ship. On the 110 scale at the Kure Naval Museum in Japan, that model also has these as square windows. So I think I'm gonna do a little bit more research or try to, get a little bit more clarity on these before I drill them out. I may have to go back and fill these and then drill them out with a round drill bit, but we'll see. Anyway, enough rambling, and we'll move on to aircraft and hangar deck. All right, guys, as you can see, I've got the deck that holds the aircraft and the boats in place, and the fit on this is actually very, very nice. These little pieces here, the instructions show you to position them with this little, cutout here, kind of angled in, but they don't exactly show you the exact position for them. So what you really need to do is use the aircraft deck on the upper surface, and get this down and put it into place and dry fit it, and rotate these until this deck snaps down into position, and then you can glue it. I'd highly recommend doing that. I scratch built some hinges for the aircraft hangar doors and both boat hangar doors. These are not permanently attached. I can lift these off the little wire hooks that I have, and I used aluminum tubing on that. So I can paint these separate. They're a little fiddly to get back on. Let's see if I can do it quickly. There we go. Yeah, it's not too bad. Let's see, what else? Got a little bit of other PE done. I got, there's a ladder on both sides. And I went ahead and drilled out the square portholes. I know that the anatomy of the ship says these portholes were round, but I guess we really don't know for sure, because so much of information was lost and destroyed before the Japanese surrender that we're really not 100% sure. The huge scale model, I think it's a 110 scale model that's at the Kure Naval Museum in Japan. I'll put some pictures up. Those windows are square. So I don't know. Anatomy of the ship has exact measurements. I believe it's 600 millimeters in diameter, and it shows exactly the position on there. So it may be correct. It probably is, but I'm just going to go with square windows. I think it's going to add a bit more visual interest to the model in the end. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reposition the camera, and I'm going to drill out the square windows on this side, and I'll show you how I'm doing that. Also, I didn't film any of the PE work that I've done so far, but if you guys want to see more of that, or just let me know in the comments below. I've got a lot more of these rails that are going to be going on this upper deck here, and there's no shortage of PE on this kit, so plenty of opportunities to show you how I'm working with that. So yeah, we'll reposition the camera and drill out these portholes. Alright guys, I'm going to drill out these portholes. I'm going to show you how I'm doing this. I'm using three things. I've got a pin vise with a drill bit that's going to it's a diameter where it's going to remove most of the material that needs to be removed. Then I'm going to come in with a hobby knife. I have a new blade, and then I'm going to cut out the excess material that's in the corners to square it up. And then I've got a square tapered file that I'm going in there and finish it up. So let's do one of these. Now I'm not using a power tool on this. I like to use my pin vise. Yes, it's slower, but I feel like I have a lot more control. Go. Let me zoom in a little bit for you. There we go. All right, so now I've got this excess material that's in the corner still. So I'm just going to take the knife and just cut in at it. And this is kind of a slow process because I don't want to screw up this window. Yeah, take a little bit at a time. Once I got most of that removed, I'm going to take my file and just start smoothing it up and getting any excess material out of there. Really putting a lot of focus and effort on the corners because I don't want it to kind of get rounded out. I want it to be obviously square in shape. There we go. I wish I had made this decision before I installed the aircraft and boat hangar deck, because I'd have really been able to get in on from the inside a lot easier, but I didn't, and this is what we're dealing with. That looks pretty close. Just do a little bit more here. All right, that looks pretty good. Then the next thing I'm gonna do is use a little Tamiya extra thin. I'm just gonna do it from the back side. Just put a little bit on there. That's gonna smooth out that rough plastic on the inside and give it more of a finished look. So that's how I'm cutting these out. I'm gonna finish these other ones and then we'll go from there. Back in a minute. All right, now it's time for the fun part, to get some paint on this beast. Before we do, I want to take a quick look at the reference material that we have. I think with any kit you build that comes with a painting and marking guide, you got to take it with a grain of salt. It is, generally pretty good, but usually you want to take a look at some actual reference photos of the subject you're building. For the red portion of the lower hull, you see that the water line comes up to right just below where the angle of the armor plating changes angles and goes up where these scupper pipes are. If we look at anatomy of the ship for the Yamato 1945, and I believe it was the same, since 1941, but you can see that the red portion of that lower hull, the water line, comes right up to the bottom of those scupper pipes. So that is where we're going to place our water line. Instead of right here, like the kit provided painting and marking guide suggests, we're going to bring it up to here. That's going to give it a little lower profile in the water. That is accurate based on the photos that I've seen of this ship, that it did have kind of a low profile. So that makes sense. So we'll bring the water line just below the scupper pipes right here. Now for the main colors, we're using scale colors, Imperial Japanese Navy, anti-fouling hull red for the lower. And guys, this red is amazing. Look at this. Look how nice that red is. I'm very excited to spray this down. That's gonna look really nice right there. For the upper part, we've seen this already when I did the ship's boats, Imperial Japanese Navy Cure Naval Arsenal Gray. This is a really nice gray color too. It's got a kind of a blue tint to it. I really love that. That's gonna look really good right there. Alright guys, thanks so much for watching. Please like and subscribe. In the next video, I'm going to show you how I weather it. I've already gone ahead and done the port side with oil paint rendering. I'm going to show you how I do that in the next video. So thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye guys.